Hey everyone. So, last time, we basically finished pretty much everything. Um, so all of this stuff exists now, all these lines. So conduit SQS, when it starts up, it'll create a registry. It'll start up a setup process. And that process will be responsible for creating all the queues that need to exist. It'll also start up a polar supervisor, which supervises all the polars. There will be one polar per queue that you're consuming from. And that will wait to start consuming from the queues until setup has finished running. There will be a worker group supervisor. That's just responsible for supervising each of the worker supervisors. So the worker supervisors are one-to-one with polars, essentially. There will be one for each group of for each queue that you're consuming from. And then you can have sort of end consumers of that particular polar from a particular queue. So all that was set up. And where we left off was that we were working on creating a integration test to test all of this, because we've tested a lot of the individual pieces together, sort of unit tested them. But we don't have multiple processes running, and when multiple processes run, typically things interact in odd ways. So what I ran into last time was in my integration test, I was getting lots of errors whenever I was calling things like get messages or, let's see, so that's get messages as well. But I was basically getting lots of errors, and so today I'm going to start with just debugging why I'm getting these errors. And if that's pretty quick, then I might go into maybe improving the test a little bit by giving myself the ability to create queues without doing it through the library itself. And then if that goes really well, then we may start to add some stuff to sort of validate that we're getting parameters that we expect. So whenever the user provides options, we might do some checking to see, was this a binary because we expect it to be, or did they provide it? Those sorts of things. So with that, let's get started. So as far as I'm aware, the library is doing everything correctly to make requests to get messages. And I've tested that before, and it seems to work fine. So what I'm going to do is start with this xaws parsers.parse, because it's here that, so I've made a request to get messages, and I believe what this is doing is parsing the response from the request. And I don't control that. And so I suspect that either I'm just making a really weird request and it's getting a really bad response and SQS, this library doesn't know how to handle it, or something weird's coming back. So I'm going to take a look at that. So what I've done is I've actually, in my deps over here, I've just opened that in another editor, the xaws library that I pulled down. And this is nice because then I don't really need to worry about getting the particular version that I have. I have the right version in my deps. So this is the file that we were seeing the error happen in, and so it was lib SQS parsers, and then line 99. So this line here. So what I'm interested in seeing here is I want to get the failure to happen again. And the best way, so I presume just rerunning the test will cause the failure to happen again. And I'm interested in seeing what the response is, because that's what's getting passed into this XML, sweet XML. And so if I get bad XML, I should be able to take that XML and then just run this myself and sort of figure out what's going on. So I'm going to do something that's heretical, but I'm going to change the XAWS library to just drop out what's in the XML. So with that, I'll need to recompile it. So I can do this mix steps compile XAWS force. So that'll cause it to recompile those files, even though it doesn't really do much to track changes. Mix doesn't for files that are in your deps because it's assumed you're not changing them. But since we're doing that, we'll need to do this. So now I'm interested in just running the particular test that's failing. So that's just conduit SQS integration test. Oops. Oh, I forgot test. Okay, so we got our failure. And where's our XML? So that's interesting. So I was expecting to see some XML here, but I don't see anything. Okay. Let's do response instead. Maybe there's, I don't know, maybe there's nothing there in the XML itself. So we failed. That's fine. Oh, I forgot to recompile this time. Oops. Another thing I realize, my shell is not keeping history. I just need to configure that. There we go. Alright, now let's do that again. Let's keep it at the top this time. So, declaring queue subscription. And so now what fails? So we're calling worker handle events here. So that means, I believe that means that we're actually trying to delete messages at this point. Let's take a look at that real quick. So worker handle events 3. What line was that? 32. So yeah, this is where we're actually trying to process the message, but then we make a call to XAWS inside of this. So let's go look at that. So yeah, it must be this line here that one is failing on. And interesting. So why isn't this printing anything out? I'm going to do the drastic option because I'm not sure why it's not clearing anything out. I'm just going to, oh, actually I know why it's, whenever I compiled it for dev and not for test. So if I do mixm equals test and then I do mixsteps compile XAWS force, it'll pick it up. Hi LNW. Let me know if you have any questions. So now that that's compiled, I should actually start to see stuff. All right. What did we? Let's see. Why did that? So it called the function that I was expecting it to call, but then it didn't print anything. That's weird. Let's go with the nuclear option. Let's just kill our build. And then let's run test again. That should recompile XAWS for us. Okay. So it seems to be dying pretty much immediately now. But, Oh wait, what's our error here? Yeah, protocol error. So, it seems to not be printing this out, even though we see that function in the stack trace. Let's just inject it into the pipeline here. And let's force compile that again. Let's just put something obnoxious here, because I'm clearly not seeing it, or it's not showing up. Alright, so we should definitely see that. All right, so we're not even seeing that. That's interesting. So, oh, wait, this is calling a different parsers. 140. This one. Okay, so I think what I want to do is just ensure that I have one of these in all the ones that I am interested in watching. So I definitely care about receive message. So let's do response here. And then, let's see, so I also use send message. And I use delete message batch. And are there any other things here that matter? List queues, don't use that. Create queue, we use that. And all right, I think that should be good. So let's do that again. All right, that looked like it was better. So what did we get back? So body was this was create queue, then we called receive message, and we died on. Let's see here. We died on publish, which would have been send message. Do we have a send message here? Doesn't look like it. Did I miss that one? No. Okay. So let's take a look at that. SQS 25. So that's just going to do send message. You know what? I wonder if the issue is just I'm using XVCR to record API calls, but maybe that's interfering with things in a way that it's not very good. Let's try this. Ah. So that seems to be the issue. When I'm running multiple processes and they're making HTTP requests, it seems like XVCR is not handling that very well. Let me just run that a couple more times to see. Yeah, pass, pass. Oh, failure. This one's probably just a timeout though. Let's just increase the timeout on that. So let's just make that a second. Yeah. So that appears to be what the issue was. Okay, well that's nice. So let's just check out XVCR and see if they just have any reported issues or anything like that. Interesting. All right, well, for now, I'm not going to worry about that. Let me just get rid of the modifications I made to XAWS. And so I'll pull that back down. And now we should be able to run our tests again and see green. That looks good. So now let's just run all tests. Okay, cool. So now I'm just going to add tag capture log. That's just so whenever I run the test, it doesn't print out this stuff here. Cool. Let me add a pipeline here real quick. So we're going to call this out tracking. And then we're just going to do plug conduit plug dot log outgoing, and then we're going to do the same thing for incoming. And then we're going to do pipe through. I forget this part. Let's go look at the docs real quick. Yeah, pipe through. Okay, so we can run pipe through and do out tracking here. And then we're going to do the same thing for incoming and do in tracking. And I'm briefly going to remove this just because I want to watch it as it does everything it does here. Okay. So we started the adapter, declared the queue, we send the message to subscription, and then it got sent in that amount of time. It's kind of slow. Then we process the message from subscription. That took 27 milliseconds. We did it again. It must have been at this point that we actually got a message back. Cool. All right. So we can add that back. So now we have this little thing, but it's a full integration test. So basically we have created our broker up here. Uh-oh. Every single time I run OBS, it just starts eating memory, and then Visual Studio does this little dance with the UI, but it always comes back. But basically, if we could actually see the screen here, we set up a broker, we set up a subscriber, and the broker uses that subscriber. And then in the test, we start the broker, so that's going to cause it to create all the queues. And then we publish a message, and then we consume that message, and then do some assertions about properties of that message. Okay, not coming back yet. All right, there we go. So yeah, that's what I was talking about. We create a subscriber. We have a broker. It configures a queue. Configures some pipelines. Configures outgoing. So when we say broker.publish sub down here, it's using this setup here to know where to publish to. And then whenever we subscribe to sub with a subscriber, it'll use this subscriber up here, and it'll read from this queue. And so eventually our subscriber will get that message. It'll send a message to our test process. And then, yeah, and then we've got a full integration test. Cool. So with that, because I can't record a VCR for this test, I don't actually want to run this test in CI, because that would require me actually having SQS set up. So I may do something later to disable the test. But right now I can just do this tag skip, so it doesn't have to reach out to SQS. Actually, let's give it a different tag. Let's call it let's just call it integration test. And then here we can do there's some flag to say exclude. Yeah, okay, so we can do exclude. So if we run it like this, next test exclude, and then integration test. Like so, we should not run our. Yep, cool. All right, so with that, oh wait, why did that get created? All right, we don't need this anymore, so we can just get rid of that. Let's rerun a test without that. Cool. So now let's go ahead and check everything in. Wait, let's see what we changed. So we act messages with the queue. Act messages, we send the delete item batches. Similar stuff there. And same type of stuff. Then our integration test. Oh, and we're just getting rid of the fixture. All right, so add integration test. So let's push that up. All right, now let's see. So I could do one of two things. I was going to look into maybe improving the tests in one particular area, specifically like when I make requests to SQS. I think for now, actually, I'm going to do some validation on options that are passed. So the best place for me to do that will be as soon as they get passed in. So that will be inside of conduit SQS. So we're going to get passed in subscribers, topology, and ops, and we just want to make sure that those are valid for our particular adapter. So I'm going to create something called let's see, what should I call that? I want to validate options. So let's just call it option validator. So there are a couple different things I want to be able to validate. One is the topology. So let's just create a function called validate topology. These are going to raise exceptions. So we're going to get a topology. And a topology will look like, we've already got one of these. We can look at one of these inside of the setup test. So oh, I take it back, not in the setup test, inside of the SQS test. Here we have a topology, so it looks something like this. And what we'll want to validate here is that this is a binary, and we can warn if we get something other than Q. So if we get exchanges, basically, and then we can validate that the options that were passed are good. I should copy that. So let's iterate over the topology. And then we're going to pass in topology function. So the topology is going to be we're going to pattern match on Q, and let's see, so this will be Q and then ops. So let's handle a situation, or let's do a situation we don't handle. So if we get an exchange, the name, well, let's just call it exchange. And then let's ignore the ops. So here we can warn. And we'll need to require logger for this to work. So here we want to do logger.warn conduit SQS adapter does not support exchanges. I guess we don't actually need the name. Let's put in the name. I got exchange let's make this a multi-line. But got exchange, and then we can do inspects exchange. So now for queues, we want to be sure that the queue name is a binary. So we can just do is binary queue actually, I guess it's just unless. Then we want to raise. Let's create an exception class here. So error. Option error. Def exception message. So now we can raise an option error here. And the error is going to be invalid queue name. I don't need that to be a multi-line actually. Invalid queue name. And then we can do inspect queue. And then we can validate the options. So let's take a look at what options we're allowed to pass for this. So this would be in XAWS when we create a queue. So this accepts queue name and queue attributes. And there are all these things. So let's just copy that for now. Validate, create queue options. So as far as conduit SQS is concerned, though, I believe we don't really require anything other than the name. So let's take a look at that. Let's see. So actually, let's look at the integration test. Yeah, so we're just using name. So we don't need any other options other than the name. So we can just validate any of the options if they happen to be provided, but we don't need to assert that any particular ones are there. So let's do validate, create queue options, and pass the ops. So the ops are going to be a keyword list, so we can actually just pattern match on that. Let's do this. So let's paste that there, and let's comment it out. So policy is a binary. So let's do tuple policy and let's do just policy there. Then we can do pipe and then rest. So what we're really interested in doing is when not is binary, policy, then we can raise an exception, option error, and actually let's pass in the queue here as well so we can say which queue it's for. So option error, expected policy for queue inspects queue to be a string but got and then we can inspect policy. All right, next one. So actually, let's write the, we can write what the final case will be, which will be validate, create queue options, queue, I misspelled queue. So when we get an empty list, we can stop. So let's just do nil. And then if we get a non-empty list, but we didn't match any of the previous clauses, where essentially we're detecting if there is an error, then what we can do is just say pull off an item and grab the rest, and we'll just run this. with the rest, because we know that this option was valid because it didn't get pulled off by one of the previous clauses. So let's keep doing that. Q. So now we're going to get visibility timeout. Actually, so we don't need rest here. And we're not going to need rest here either, likely. Let's check what visibility timeout was here. So it's just a number in that range. So we can do when timeout, when is it timeout not in or not timeout in? I need to check that. So if we do IAX, let's do one not in range. Okay, so that works. If I do not one in that range, does that work? Okay, both of them work. Let's do something that is actually outside the range. Let's say -1. And this one as well. Okay, so they both work. I prefer this format then. Timeout not in. Alright, so raise, option error. Expected visibility timeout. For Q inspect Q. To be in let's just say this guy here, like so. So they're probably going to start following a pattern like this. So this is maximum message size between those numbers there. Oh, I forgot the but got part. So these are starting to look similar, so I kind of want to create another function for this, which is raise create Q option error. And that's going to take, let's see, that. Let's write the template, and then we can start filling it in. So we want to get option name, which we can stick in there. And then for Q, inspect Q. Maybe we should do inspect here actually as well. So this will be expected policy for Q foo to, so this is where it falls down slightly. Well, maybe not. So let's do Q here, option name, expectation, and then value. Oops, expectation and then value. So we can call this the expectation. And then this will be the value. Alright, so then we can move this up here. And we just pass Q. Option name will be policy. And then expectation be a string. And then value will be policy. And we can get rid of that. We can do the same thing here. So Q, visibility timeout, be in, be in this range, and then here to be the timeout. Alright, and then we can just do this here. Let's just change this to value everywhere, so we don't need to keep changing the name. Okay. So now we can get rid of that. So we've handled up to there. So we should handle this one. This is going to look just like this. Okay, and then approximate number of messages, binary. That's weird. I wonder what that's used for. So we're looking at create queue. Those are ignored. Any other valid special request parameters such as the following are ignored. Why does it even exist? That's such a weird... I don't even know why that's there. I'm not going to validate that. That can just exist. I don't care. Wait, why would you even specify the created timestamp for your... Shouldn't that be automatic when you create a queue? What was it? Created timestamp. Oh, that's one of the ignored ones. Along with QR. Alright, I'm gonna ignore all the ignored ones. Let's just delete them. So that's not interesting. So last modified timestamp, that's the same, right? Yeah. We're gonna ignore that, along with QR. And then approximate number of messages delayed. Yeah, and not visible as well. Alright, real options. So that should be in that range. Oh, I'm forgetting to change this guy here. Okay. Let's duplicate this again. We want to do this guy. And our range is 0 to 20. I've got extra spaces. Okay. So now, in another case, redrive policy. What is that? So it's a thing. Let's just validate that it's a good thing. We actually want to use this style if it's a binary. I'm tempted to just, now that I'm looking at this, I'm like, maybe I actually want to do something like this. I can just do for, let's say, option and value that's in our collection. So let's just define one. So range options. So let's just make that a map. And so we're going to take this guy, this guy, that one, that one, and that's all. So we can just take at range options, and then we can define these guys in a loop. So here we would just do option. We called that value. Let's call that constraint range. So then we can say range here, and range here. I'm not sure about this one. This one might fail. And that there. Yeah, okay. Well, we'll see how that does. And then we can do binary options. So this we just need a list. So we do policy. Actually, let's do it like this. So policy. Redrive policy. And then those are two booleans. So then we can do this form for that one. So let's just do for, that's not table, for option in binary options, do, and then we'll move this inside there. Oh, I did that wrong. Okay, then let's see, so this should be option, this should be option. Okay, so that nullifies most of these. And then we've got these two Boolean values. So FIFO-Q and content-based deduplication. So let's call those Boolean options. So FIFO-Q content-based duplication. I actually want this to be above this. So it'll be pretty similar to this one. All right, so when not, oh, I have policy there still. That should be value. So I want to do when value not in no false true. And then be a boolean. All right. I think that's all of it. So let's create a test for this now. It's a case. Yeah, it's a case. All right. So we can describe option validator, validate topology. And that just takes one argument. So the first thing we can validate is that we warn whenever we provide an exchange. So test it warn when exchange is specified. So we can just do, let's create an alias for our module that we're testing, like so, and then we can do option validator dot validate what's it called? Validate topology again. Like so, and then we can pass a topology. So let's just create one. So we got blah, and then we just pass the empty list. So that's going to be our topology, and then we're going to want to import xunit log capture log. Yeah, that. So now that's going to give us a function that we can use to capture the log. So that takes a function. Wait, how does that work? Captures logger messages generated when evaluating the function. Oh, it returns them though, right? Yeah, that's what it is. So we can just assert that when this executes, that, we get our error message. So our error message here should be this guy. So we're just going to do a partial match, so we can use equal tilde for that. Okay, so let's run that test. All right, we failed. Yeah, so I did some stuff that's not quite allowed. So range here is, oh, actually, I want to use unquote here. So I can do unquote option equals option, like so. And then I can do unquote range. And same thing here. Unquote range. So that should fix that situation. And then here I want to do similar thing, unquote option equals option, and then unquote value. Oh wait, not unquote value. I don't need to do that. Yeah, that should be all I need for that one. And this will be the same. All right, let's try that out. Non-literal range in guard should be escaped with macro escape. So, okay. So let's do let's just do range equals macro escape range there. Alright, so now we have undefined function, validate, create queue options. Right. It should be passing the queue in here. Cool. So that passed. We have variable queues. I'm going to use line 59. Right. Cool. So now we can just list out all of our cases. So raise when queue name is not a binary. So then we can assert raise what are the options here? Reception and the function. So here we expect to get a option error. Let's alias that. So we should get an option error. And we'll write our function. So option validator dot validate topology, and so here we can just do change this to Q, and then we can do blah like that, and we should get an error. The string will be the string will be invalid QName. So this will be foo. Or sorry, blah. All right. Now, let's see. So I need that open right now for this. So we should do the range options and the policy redrive policy. So all the range ones we can just do -1 and it shouldn't match any of those. And then policy and redrive policy, we can just pass in atoms, and same thing for the Boolean options. Actually, I wonder what happens when you do a string in a range. Oh, okay, it just works. It's good enough for me. Okay, so here we can do test raises when range option is outside range. can just do let's do a macro here as well. So we're going to get option and range. And we can do, we're going to escape the range again. So raises when option so I just want to do string interpolation inspect of that. So raises when maximum message size is outside inspect unquote range. And now I can do, let's see, range dot, is there a way to get the lower bound? So range, oh, you can just pattern match it. That works. So if I do first dot last equals unquote range, then I can do, let's see, so if we do first -1 as our option inside of our topology, so do Q blah, and then we can do unquote option comma and then just first -1, so that'll take us below the range. And then we can run a test. So we should assert invalid queue name. That won't be there. Here we should get expected, all that stuff. So I don't want to match this whole thing, so let's do a regular expression. So expected dot star for q dot star to be in dot star got dot star. All right, then we can close that regular expression. And that should be good enough. So let's run our tests. And we failed. And quote called outside quote for option validator test 39. I might be doing too much magic here. So it doesn't like how I'm doing it here. Well, since we're running this essentially, since we're doing this section for each of these, we really only need to validate one of them, and then we know that the other ones in that section work. So let's just do that. So everywhere where I'm doing, so this is the option. And then we can do it's outside of this range. And we could say the range equals that. We shouldn't need the rest of these. So then our option is this guy here. Like so. And then we can do the full string here now. So expected. Actually, let's just let it fail. And then we can fix it. Yeah, so let's see. Test is already defined. Oh, I must have copied it. Okay, so that's what we want. Expected that setting for q blah to be in that range, but got something outside that range. So that's good. Actually, let's do error message here. Cool. And then let's also do a version of this for plus. So we can do last plus 1. And this should give us this number plus 1. Cool. Now let's do let's just call this range option. Is outside range. So now let's test raises when binary option is not binary. Do. So here, let's just test policy. So we can do topology. Policy. And then we'll just do foo here. And then we should get something like this. That will be policy for cube blah to be a string but got, and we should get foo there. Cool. And then we can do the same thing. Test raises when Boolean option is not a Boolean. And we'll just pick one. So FIFO-Q. So then it will be expected FIFO-Q for Q blah to be a Boolean, but got foo. All right, cool. So we've got that. I'll go ahead and commit that. So add validation for topology options. Push that up. Cool. So now let's actually call that. Actually, we're gonna do. We're just gonna have a top level validate function. Validate. And that's gonna take a topology, subscribers. And we can just call validate topology there, and then let's pop open conduit SQS. So we get topology, subscribers, and ops. So let's actually do it here. Let's just do option validator. So option validator dot validate topology subscribers, and let's do the ops as well. And let's just have this take ops as well. We're going to call that adapter ops. And whew, I'm tired. definitely can't say your name, so I'm just gonna call you Paco. Let me know if you guys have any questions, but basically right now I'm just sort of working on giving user a better experience. Um, and so it's a little bit tedious, but I'm going through and adding validations for each of the options. And so basically, if you misconfigure something, it'll crash early and say what you're doing wrong. Um, but yeah, so I've added this option validator validate. It takes in the various options that get provided to the adapter and just runs through validating them. So now I'm going to do validate subscribers. Okay, so let's do another. All right, so we take in subscribers, and we're just going to enumerate over them. And yeah. So what's our function signature going to be? We take a look at where do we specify that? Conduit SQS test. So that's set up. Okay, so it's just name and options. Okay, so where are we? Option validator. So we get a subscriber. It's basically just a name and then ops. So we can validate that the name is a Adam. So let's do two cases here. So when is Adam name, and then in the other case, so the other case would just be whatever. Well, actually, we want to capture what the name is. Name, we won't care about ops. So in this case, we can raise an exception. So that'll be an option error. Expected subscribe what is that get called in conduit? So subscribe and then that. It's probably just name. So that would be subscribe, that would be incoming scope. So it's just module name, subscriber, and ops. Okay, well, that's fine. We'll just call it subscribe name to be an Adam but got inspects name. All right. Oops. Okay. So expected subscribe name to be an atom, but got spec name. And then here we can do just validate subscriber options. And then we'll pass the name and the ops. So now name, and we'll do the final case first. So if we get an empty list, actually that may be problematic. We want to validate that something's in the list, right? So let's look at our integration test. So subscribe is going to require a from. Publish is going to require it too. I'm sleepy. I'm going to stop here, and I'll pick up maybe tomorrow night. Bye, everyone.